Hello there, and welcome to another Genshin discussion. Why do I sound so down? That's because I have to record this for the second time, because the first time I forgot to take my microphone off of mute. 25 minutes gone down the drain. Anyway, let's begin again. This time, we will take a look at the amazing story that was the Masquerade of the Guilty, also known as the 4.2 Archon Quest, and the ending of the major story arc of Fountaine. Of course, there's still the Ordo stuff and whatever else comes up later with the updates, but this was indeed the ending of the prophecy part. And what an ending it was. But before I get to that, I got two things I want to say first. If you do not want to get spoiled about the story and you want to experience it yourself, do please leave the video now. After this little disclaimer, I will be talking about spoilers and lots of them. And if you do enjoy the video, if you could please leave a like, comment, or maybe even subscribe. Well, with that out of the way, let us begin. So, Act 5. Masquerade of the Guilty. Quite a fitting name for it, to be honest. The final parts were amazing and the reveals quite interesting, but let us start from the very beginning. This part, while not the most game-changing, did allow me as a player to get immersed into what the prophecy getting to an end would mean. With Poisson pretty much destroyed by the waters and the loss of many people there, including Silver and Melus. It was really depressing, and unfortunately my initial theory that the dissolved people would be brought back was wrong. So they will remain dead unless something comes up later. Then there was the involvement by the Fatui. It did feel quite genuine, as Arlecchino herself said that she wants to stop the prophecy and help the Fontainians as much as possible. This I truly feel was her goal here. The fact that it would help towards getting a Gnosis as well could have been her secondary goal in this moment, but until we get Arlecchino's true intention, which we won't know for sure. Then comes the first batch of reveals. First, Navia almost gets dissolved in the waters while exploring some ruins, but fortunately Neuvillette was there to help. What's important there is that while almost getting dissolved, she did have sort of a dream state, where the people that showed up were the people that died in Poisson. And the fact that they were looking like Oceanids is something really important that's going to play a part a bit later. Then, not long after that, the group finds a bunch of stone tablets that actually showcase the prophecy. They are indeed ancient and could have only really been created by someone with sufficient power to actually see or predict the future to such a degree. Someone that might be called the Visionary. While the three present tablets do present Egeria confessing to Celestia about her sin, Farina falling in the water, and Farina being all alone, there does seem to be a missing one. That one tablet unlocks the full truth about the prophecy and will be indeed brought up later. With all the new info, Neuvillette decides to confront Farina, who of course denies ever knowing about the tablets to begin with, after which she storms off. That prompts Neuvillette to gather everyone that was involved in the recent events to plan out an intervention. Well, they use the word hunting as a metaphor, which, while it fits, is not really completely accurate, which is something that the characters themselves brought up. Though, I have to say that Brysley and Arlecchino missing was a bit weird. Brysley should be a big part, specifically since he governs a country within a country, pretty much. But as for Arlecchino, since the magic siblings are there, there's no real need for her to come too. And so, the plan is put in motion. But not before a little tea. So earlier in the story, Mona showed up and said that she will try to talk with her master about the prophecy. But in the end she didn't manage to contact her. Though, luckily, Miss Nicole, also known as Mage N, from the Herzen Circle, makes another appearance after talking with the Traveler at the end of Sumeru. She does talk about some weird stuff. It seems as though Celestia, being all powerful and everything, still has blind spots, places where Celestia and the gods are not able to see, and this is highly important for what's going to be revealed later. And because of these blind spots, I honestly wonder if this is how Khaenri'ah was able to get to a point where the disaster was inevitable without the Celestia intervening before it even happened. Then there's something about fate serving as our guide, which initially sounded weird to me. As the traveler being a descender, they shouldn't really have to deal with the fate present in Teyvat. But then it hit me, and it hurt. While the traveler might not be affected by fate, they can still follow the fate of those around them. This is how it has all happened until now. The traveler meets someone new in a nation, and that leads to all kinds of shenanigans that push the plot forward. It could be that, I did not understand correctly, the whole traveler is not recorded in the Ermin's soul, and the traveler could indeed be affected by fate even though they're not recorded. Well, with my ramblings about fate out of the way, it's time to start the main event. So Farina falls into the trap set by the group. She thinks some people want to kill her, so she runs away. Then, with the help of the traveler, who leads her to a small house in Poisson, which in reality is a magic box, she's brought to the Opera Epiclese. Honestly, Eleni outdid himself even more this time compared to when he did that awesome trick in the story quest. And now, with the main actress present, the show must begin. Places, everyone. With accusations being thrown, Farina initially refuses to accept them, which would lead into a duel with Chlorinde. Now, this was a beautiful full circle moment, which is something I've started to enjoy even more recently. As Farina once again asks, "You would draw your blade against the god?" Just like when she first met the traveler at the very start of the game. Awesome moment indeed. Then the trial itself starts. The charges are that Farina is not the real Hydro Archon. Now that's something that I thought couldn't be true, as last time in the story it was said that she might just be cursed, not necessarily that she's not the Archon. Then the primordial water came out. But not as in the prophecy being fulfilled, but as in a bowl filled with it. In order to prove that Farina is a god, she has to put her hand in the water. If she's indeed a god, as she claims, she wouldn't have any adverse effects. Effects that actually happen. The Farina that we know, the one that has been the Archon for 500 years, is a fraud. Is only human. A human cursed to be immortal. But who cursed her? Well, as Genshin likes to do, this is revealed 5 minutes later. No, like seriously. While taking the notes during the story, I would write down something then that I could theorize about, and boom, a couple minutes later, it was all answered. Well, with the trial over, a sentence is given. Neuvillette finds Farina guilty of not being the real Hydro Archon. But when it came to the answer from the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal sentences the Hydro Archon to the death sentence. Wait a second though. But if Farina is a human, and the Hydro Archon is the one sentenced, what does that mean? Well, before that, we do get more reveals as the first stone tablet has been rediscovered by Freminet and brought to the opera. In the end, after Neuvillette gets to analyze the stone tablet and takes the information from it, the prophecy goes something like this. Egeria gave her oceanid followers who craved to achieve humanity the way to do so. She imbued them with power from the primordial sea and created the first Fontainians. This was seen as a major sin by the likes of Celestia, allowing a mere god to create life? Never. Thus the prophecy was born, where Egeria would die because of her sins, and claiming with the prophecy that the flood would come to dissolve the people of Fontaine back into their original form. While much later her successor would be judged by unknown people, which then leads to Farina remaining alone amidst the risen waters of Fontaine, with everyone gone. Now, while this is all cool and stuff, there's kind of a problem. And that problem is the massive goddamn whale that's coming while shattering the fabric of reality. This cutscene was amazing. The narwhal entrance alongside the fight the child has with it, beautiful. 10 out of goddamn 10. Neuvillette also pretty much confirms that the narwhal is why the sluice gate at the fortress failed and why the water has been rising. The creature has been feasting on the primordial sea power for a long time, and now that it's getting hungrier, it sees the Fontainians as more food for itself because of the primordial sea power coursing through the veins. Oh, right, as the tablet said, all Fontainians are actually humanoid oceanids. That's why they dissolve in primordial seawater. When their form comes into contact with it, the power is reabsorbed and leads to them losing their form. Well, after such an awesome fight scene and multiple reveals about Fontainians, what more could we get? Well, an even bigger reveal on top of that, which will explain everything as to why Furina's the way she is. Back during the time when Egeria was still alive, she chose to have Folslore as her successor, and that's the person to deal with the prophecy. Once this was done, Folslore went to the bottom of the ocean to think of a plan to deal with the dire situation that was slowly but surely approaching. The plan that she came up with was quite ingenious. Her plan was to deceive Celeste itself. But how could she do that without attracting suspicion? Well, she did it by splitting herself into two. Furina, a human that would have to play along, to play as the god of waters, as the god of justice, and fool everyone around her into thinking she's just a mascot. And Folslore, the remaining divine part that once was a part of the complete Archon. Her divine side was then hidden inside the Orchis in order to gain enough power as the centuries passed. Enough power for what exactly? In order to execute Folslore once the trial finds her guilty and sentences the Hydra Archon to the death penalty. But not just that. This would not only be killing a god, but it would also be destroying the divine throne of the Hydra Archon. This way, the power stolen from the Hydra Sovereign Dragon could return to it, and thus Neuvillette would have enough power to save the people of Fontaine. As the prophecy said, Fontainians are oceanids that have been brought under human form using the power of the primordial sea. But now that Neuvillette has all his power back, is able to change the Fontainians at pretty much a base level and is able to turn them into actual humans. Or at least closer to being humans. And it's quite interesting. It says something about changing the blood that goes through their veins as the power of the primordial sea is no longer required to hold their form or whatever. It's also interesting that we have once again with Folslore another Archon that's either distrustful or at least very wary of Celestia. Technically even hostile towards it. Like, remember when Venti flat out warned us about the truth behind Celestia when we left Mondstadt? Also, there's the fact that pretty much everything that we've heard Celestia to do has been pretty much building them up to be the final bad guys alongside the Abyss. Well, alongside the reveals about Folslore, we also got to look at Furina's real emotions and story. Initially trying to be herself, but in the end she had to play the role of a god for centuries in order to fool everyone. And she did that. Well, almost. She really couldn't fool herself into believing it, and so she was left to live a lonely life, this endeavor. After that, we do get the first fight with the weekly boss, and I gotta say it was quite impressive. The massive scale was done quite well, and the music change when we get swallowed was amazing. Though, to be fair, even though the scale is massive, the fight itself was quite boring. At least the narwhal part. After that, Skirk finally appears. Analysts thought that she would come slightly earlier and actually fight the narwhal alongside the child during the cutscene, but at least we finally get her. But that's kind of like a weird thing. She talks about Surlatogi. But I'm gonna call him the Fowl because I don't know if I pronounced that name correctly. That is Skirk's master, which is Honestly, I had to believe that Skirk would just be this wandering warrior kind of deal before we actually got to meet her. While she's still powerful and it seems that she can use the power from beyond, that things we've mentioned before, I feel like her having a master kind of makes her seem not as cool as she could be. Either way, the Fowl character is someone similar to Gold or the Visionary that created the prophecy. a very powerful person, and someone who will most likely be really important when it comes to the story and game of Genshin. Other than this, there's no other real info given, because we get interrupted by the final part of the prophecy finally happening. The waters around Fountaine start to rise, and we see Farina underwater all alone. As the water levels stabilize, people start coming to the surface, swimming from the streets of Fountaine. As stated before, Villette changed the people of Fountaine into real humans. They no longer dissolve in the water, and so they survive the prophecy. The people who have dissolved previously, though, unfortunately remain dead. Sad thoughts out of the way, we do get a good look at the ship that was being built under the fortress, and holy crap, it's a flying ship. It's flying. I honestly thought it was just a normal one, not a flying ship. Those researchers really did a great job here. After this, we do get a couple of scenes of visiting the different parts of Fountaine, like Poisson and the fortress. Poisson is currently under reconstruction, while the fortress is business as usual. Then another full circle moment comes up as the magic trio is once again selling magic pockets, like at the very beginning of the Archon quest. And now, we talk once again with Neuvillette in order to get some final answers. Here is where he tells you as a traveler about changing the Fontainians, but he also tells you about the reasons he has for giving the Gnosis away to Alekino. Yep, you heard me right. Now that Tsaritsa officially has 6 out of the 7 Gnosis. What she plans to do with them? I got a small theory that I'll talk about in just a bit. So, his reasons. Well, first he gave it away because it doesn't really benefit him anymore. In any way, as his powers have returned already after False Lore's death. It was also because of her diplomatic reason, as the Fatui did help a lot here, and it could also be or as a little sorry sort of token because of the child incident. And it was also because Skirk told him that it brings misfortune. But why would it bring misfortune? Because, and hear me out, I'll sound insane for just saying it, but it's true, the Gnosis are the remains of the 3rd Descender. Yeah, this actually leads from the reveal in Sumer where we found out that there were 4 Descenders, with the Heavenly Principles being the 1st and us being the 4th. Now we also know what happened to the 3rd. They most likely died at some point before the Archon War, as we know that the Gnosis were given to the Archons after they were chosen after post-war. Now the question is, who could this person be? Could it honestly be someone related to the main character? It can't be the Abyss Sibling unless the Abyss Sibling died and was revived later in another body. It could be another of their family or something like that. Why am I saying this? Well, it's because those remains have enormous elemental capabilities. Let's not forget that each of the Gnosis were given to each of the 7 elemental gods, and they did boost their power from what we know. It could also be that their elemental abilities, that the Gnosis' elemental abilities, are there because of the dragon powers or something Celestia did. But what if they worked so well with the elements because the 3rd Descender was similar in constitution with the Traveler? This could be debunked if any person that comes from outside of Teyvat would be able to use all elements, but we don't really have anything like that for now. There's Aloy, but I feel like she's not canonically in Teyvat and has never canonically been in Teyvat. And now that we know what the Gnosis are, what if the Tsaritsa wants to revive the 3rd Descender? Or at least use their power? This would make some sense, as who else would be good to have against the Descender, other than an Outer Descender? Since the first was the Heavenly Principles, the 2nd is unknown, and the 3rd is dead, with the 4th being us hating the Fatui for now, which one would be easiest to gather? The 3rd, the Gnosis. Here I go with my crazy theories again. One thing with the Gnosis reveal is, well, how does it work with the reveal from 4.1? The one that the Gnosis have the power of the dragons inside of them. If Neuvillette gained his powers back once the Divine Throne was destroyed, does the Gnosis even have the power in it anymore? Actually, now that I think about it, what if the 3rd Descender wasn't just about using the elements around him, What if they were all about absorbing the power of creatures around? This would explain why, even with the power drained from it, that Tsaritsa would still want the Gnosis. If the third descender is revived and their power is really stealing other people's power, then it doesn't matter if it was if it has the hydropower or not anymore. Which kind of leads into another thing. Why were the Gnosis sent to the 7 gods? So this theory doesn't really make that much sense. I'm thinking, since the Gnosis are the remains of the third descender, what if Celestia was afraid of the third descender, and once they killed them or they died, they spread the remains of the third descender all around Teyvat by giving it to each of the gods, each of the 7 nations, in order to keep them apart. But then it doesn't make much sense, because we do know that some of the gods did end up meeting together. We know that Venti and Zhongli at least did meet together, did meet from time to time. But yeah, it could also be because of that. It could be interesting. Could also have been put under the Archons and oh, maybe that's why the Archon War was a thing. To find the most powerful god of each of the elements required in order to keep the third descender from reviving. Crazy theories all over the place. Anyway, let's continue. With my theories out of the way, the last reveal we have is that the people of Natlan, or at least they are somehow, descendants of dragons, in the sense that they have evolved and changed from dragons of old. But not ancient dragons. They're not like ancient dragons. There isn't much to go by here other than the fact that it gives me sort of Visha people vibe, you know, those with slit pupils. Oh, right, there's also Capitano, who is in Natlan. We kind of knew about this for a while because of Varka and Varka's expedition, because they did end up meeting Capitano at some point, and it was said that Capitano is going towards Natlan. Oh boy, that was a lot. A lot of awesome gameplay and amazing reveals. I had around 3.5 pages of notes written down for this video, and I did end up playing the story on the same day it came out. Well, I still have the Ordo quest and whatever other world quests are added alongside the Farina story quest, but both will get their own video later, so no worries about that. But that's it for me for today. So I hope that you have enjoyed watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.